What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I was told a few days ago in an email, 3 days ago to be exact, that I need to dress more like a prepper. They said that if I dressed more like a prepper, I would get more eyeballs on my videos because people scrolling through YouTube will see the thumbnail and would see a prepper in the thumbnail and know that was a prepping video, so they would click on that and watch that video. They said I didn't look like a prepper. I didn't dress like a prepper. You know what you think in the comments below? Should I dress differently? Do you think if I dressed more like a prepper that I would get more views on my videos? I mean, what you think in the comments below? And if you think I should, let me know how a prepper's supposed to dress. What's a prepper supposed to wear? Kind of confusing. But let me know what you think in the comments below about all that situation. Anyway, I know you all are probably sick of hearing this. I've been talking about this for a while. I've talked about this in different videos for the last 4 years here. I've talked about this on my website. I've been talking about this for the last probably 10 or 12 years here online, trying to tell people that the United States was a dying empire. I'm not the only one saying this. Many others are saying this. People who are much more intelligent than I am are saying this. So it should be obvious now to anyone paying any attention at all that the United States empire is collapsing. It is dying. Unfortunately, if you try to talk to your neighbors, if you try to talk to most of your family, your friends, they would be completely clueless. They would deny this fact. They don't want to hear this, because if they admit that the United States empire is crumbling and losing that superpower status, that they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to prepare. They're going to have to learn how to provide for themselves, and people don't want to admit to that, because if they admit to what's happening, they have to take responsibility for their own lives and their own actions, and that is something that most people don't want to do. And even most of the politicians seem to not think the United States is a dying empire. They seem to not realize what's going on because they're completely clueless. I mean, it's like living in fantasy land and you're not the one that has any semblance of sanity looking in, and you see what's happening, and everyone else is going around doing their TikTok dances and things, completely unaware of what's actually happening and going on. The United States is a crumbling empire. I talked about the fact that if you look at the Roman Empire when they were collapsing, the United States now, as they're collapsing, you can see so many similarities. I talked about this, like I said in the video, I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago, but the similarities are undeniable between the crash of the Roman Empire and the crash of the United States. We have, completely open southern border. We have a corrupt elections here in the United States. That should be obvious by now. Completely corrupted elections. We have unchecked currency printing and spending. We have corrupt justice system. I mean, look at what's going on right now with the persecution of Donald Trump. And you look at Hunter Biden, you look at Joe Biden and the Biden crime family, you look at the Clintons, and so much evidence, so much proof on those people. I mean, it came out, they've had recordings, 100% proof of illegal activities that Hunter Biden has been doing and has done in the past, and Joe Biden when he was vice president. So many things with proof. But the justice system, the Department of Justice, the DOJ, the courts, don't go after them. They don't dare speak against them. The media is hush-hush about all this. But they will use their power to go after Donald Trump. And we see this. I'm not saying Donald Trump is an angel. I'm not saying that at all. You all watch my videos here on this channel know, how I feel about all this. But it's obvious that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the corruption. I mean, the corruption is right there. Proof of all the corruption. But the courts, the federal law enforcement, the FBI, Department of Justice, the media refuse to go after them with hard proof. But they will go after Donald Trump. And you see this happening in, banana republics, third world countries, communist countries, where they use the power that they have while they're in office and the courts and things to go after and destroy their political rivals. And we see that going on right now. The United States is morally bankrupt. And you look at what month this is. Pride Month. There's rainbow flags everywhere, including at the White House. There's gender affirming surgeries going on. All kinds of things that show the United States completely morally corrupt. And it's not only that. I mean, you see just people who will lie, cheat, steal, whatever. They don't care, if they're married, they will still cheat without any having a second thought. And most people, a lot of people, and they just don't have any morals no more. It's just about do as thou will. Whatever makes them feel good, whatever makes them happy, they will do that without regard of worrying about anyone else, worrying about, sin, whatever. They just do whatever they want to do, not worry about the morality of it. There's a war on Christianity. There's a war on the family, because they know that the United States was built on the traditional family, and that gives us strength. And there's definitely a war on that traditional family unit. When you look at all the divorces there are right now, all the single parents, and it's just been over the years, over the decades, getting worse and worse and worse. And in my opinion, it's all been on purpose. I could go on all day long talking about this and talking about the problems, and so many problems, and I can make a big list of all the problems and talk about all those problems, but most people would probably get bored and not want to hear it. So we'll move on to the next topic of today's video. But don't worry, all the topics tying together. The world is dumping the dollar. We're seeing massive de-dollarization around the world, being led by China, Russia, and their BRICS nations. And more countries are dumping the dollar. I saw a video a few days ago. I forgot which channel was on, but they were talking about countries in Africa was dumping the dollar. Just about every nation around the world is doing their best to separate themselves from the U.S. dollar, because they see how the United States has weaponized that dollar as the world reserve currency for decades now, and used that dollar to control, to destroy other countries, other nations, and to dictate their will on others. And they see this, so they're saying we need to get away from this dollar as quickly as possible. And before, when a nation would try to do this on their own, they would end up like Libya. They would end up like Iraq. Now we see Russia and China, two superpowers, nuclear-armed superpowers, leading the way to get off this system of the United States dollar as the world reserve currency. So the BRICS nations getting off the dollar. Other countries see this and they're jumping on board, dumping the dollar. So the United States dollar doesn't have the power, the authority, and the ability now as it once did to control the world. And that is one thing that's kept the United States hegemony around the world, is that U.S. dollar, and oil being tied to that dollar and being backed up by the United States military. Like I said, in the past, if a nation tried to get off the dollar and tried to sell their oil, for example, in other currencies, tried to do trade in other currencies besides the United States dollar, the military, first the media, the politicians and the media would start demonizing that nation. And next thing you knew, in a few months, they'd be invaded. They'd have some false flag or something invade that nation and kill that leader, just assassinate that leader and put their own puppet in. But with China and Russia leading the charge and other nations joining in, the United States has pretty much lost control. And this is definitely leading to the United States crumbling even more quickly. So guys, the dollar is losing power. It's actually losing buying power here in the United States through inflation, but it's losing power around the world. It's losing power where the United States government can use that to control other nations. And not only that, the military here in the United States is getting weaker. They're getting more woke. I mean, you look at the military here in the U.S., what it is now and what it once was, you can see, the woke military more and more is getting more weaker. And you see the war going on between Ukraine and Russia. The United States is supplying Ukraine with pretty much everything. Billions and billions of dollars in weapons. That's not, from what I know, from my knowledge, that's not being replenished. They're sending it out, making us weaker to help defend Ukraine supposedly against Russia. Other nations in NATO doing the same thing. The United States at the front of the line, pretty much, and just giving everything Ukraine wants, everything Ukraine asks for, weapons-wise, currency-wise, and it's just making the United States military weaker. So the dollar's getting weaker, the military is getting weaker, and those two things has secured the United States as a world dominating superpower. And we see both of those crashing. The dollar's crashing as world reserve currency. Nations are running away as quickly as they possibly can. The United States military is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And we see China, Russia, and other nations, their currencies are doing pretty good. The United States and NATO put sanctions, supposedly the most severe sanctions ever put on the nation, on Russia, and after Russia invaded Ukraine. And Russia, from what I've read, what I've heard, what I've saw, is thriving. Their economy is doing great. Everything is going great. And the sanctions the United States has put on, and NATO's put on Russia, hasn't had any effect. So it shows you, that also shows the United States is losing their grip on power. And guys, while the United States military is getting weaker, you see the militaries in other countries, like China, for example, and Russia, actually, in my opinion, because right now Russia is getting a lot of training, a lot of on-the-ground training, and figuring out how to wage war more effectively with what's going on with Ukraine right now. China is getting more powerful militarily. We have Iran getting more powerful militarily. North Korea has nuclear weapons. The United States and NATO is getting weaker militarily, and our enemies around the world are getting stronger. Their militaries are getting stronger. Their currency, for the most part, it's kind of up and down, but their economies and stuff are doing better than ours is. So they're winning all the way around from what I've saw, what I've read, and what I've been hearing. And right now, China is going to build what they're saying is a base in Cuba, working with the Cuban government to build a base in Cuba to spy on United States communications. Now, you know, if they're going to build a base to spy on communications, that more than likely they're going to bring in weapons. They're going to be able to attack from Cuba. They know this war is coming, and I'll get into that here in just a few minutes in the ending part of this video. They're building a base in Cuba, so they know the United States isn't going to do anything about it. They know the United States is weak. Russia, or the Soviet Union, was going to put, the Cuban Missile Crisis, going to put nukes in Cuba. And we see how that turned out. The United States is going to, it's going to be World War III. But here China is putting in a supposed spy station, listening base to spy on the United States, communications and things right in Cuba. And you don't hear anything about it in the mainstream media. You're not hearing any politicians talking about putting an end to this. They're doing it because they don't fear the United States any longer. And they're positioning themselves militarily because they know this war, the United States, is coming. The United States government, NATO, the military-industrial complex, the deep state here in the United States, isn't going to just go away peacefully and let China assume the world dominating superpower position. And since the United States can't use the dollar, the weaponized dollar, to control nations any longer, the only choice they have is to lash out militarily through a war with China. And in fact, we've had prominent officials here in the United States openly stating that by 2025, or in 2025, the United States and China would be at war. So it is, in my opinion, definitely coming. The United States is losing superpower status. They're losing the dominating world status and ability to control other nations and rob other nations with the military and the U.S. dollar. So they're going to lash out militarily. China knows this. The U.S. knows this. Everyone else knows this. That's why we're seeing all this posturing right now. That's why we're seeing China putting bases in Cuba. That's why we're seeing everything going on right now, because they're getting ready for this war that they're saying is going to happen in 2025. It could be sooner. It could be a little bit later. I don't know, but they're openly stating the fact that it's going to happen. Now, I know a lot of people here in the U.S. thinks that China's nothing to worry about, that a war with China is going to be like, Iraq and Afghanistan. It's going to be simple. It's going to be easy. We can take out China in 30 minutes. China's going to be gone. Some people actually believe that nonsense. It's not fact. It's not going to happen that way. For one, there's lots of space between United States and China. And when they wage war, the United States will have to go to China to wage that war, in my opinion. So they're going to have a lot of logistics and things in place, whereas China's will be right there. Plus, China has hypersonic missiles, and those hypersonic missiles were designed to sink those aircraft carriers, to sink the United States Navy. I mean, it's not going to be a simple war with low casualties comparatively to, say, World War I and World War II that we've had in like Afghanistan and Iraq. Chinese military is much more advanced, much stronger, and much more capable than the previous wars we fought in the previous decades. There's going to be huge casualties. There's going to be huge loss of resources, casualties, and it definitely has the potential to spread out other than and include other nations other than the United States and China. And in fact, more than likely it will. United States and China go to war. We will have other nations join in. We will have, in my opinion, North Korea attack South Korea. We're going to have everything exploding with other nations, seeing what's happening, going to see their opportunity, and it's going to be exploding out to World War III, in my opinion. And it most definitely could go nuclear. I hope that it doesn't, but it most definitely could. And depending on different factors, I think that it probably will. I think there will be at least a limited nuclear strike on the United States mainland. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hope that doesn't happen. Hopefully they keep it in a conventional war with the infantry, with armor, with the Navy, with the Air Force, and go to war that way, and no nukes are used. However, more than likely, when it gets that heated between superpowers, nukes will most likely be used. And North Korea, that's a wild card. And we have North Korea, North and South Korea is actually still in a state of war. They've never ended the war, the Korean War, so they've had a ceasefire, supposedly, but that could break out, at any moment. And when China and the United States go into direct conflict, which they're saying is going to happen, which is pretty obvious that it's going to happen, we're going to see this all explode out into World War III, in my opinion, with massive loss of life, loss of resources. We could see attacks here inside the United States. And in fact, the border, like I said a few minutes ago, is wide open. We're having thousands of Chinese military-aged males coming across the border. And no doubt they're coming here for a purpose, coming here with a mission, because they know it's going to break out. They're going to forming cells in the United States. I heard Iran has been doing the same thing for years, getting ready. And when war breaks out, they will be activated inside the United States, and they will attack inside the United States. They will attack infrastructure here in the U.S. to cause as much damage as possible. In my opinion, I know if I was the leader in China, and I was planning on a war with the United States, I'd be doing the same thing. I would have military-aged men, highly trained, skilled operatives to come across that border. It's wide open, position themselves inside the United States, have specific targets to attack. I would already have them trained to attack those specific targets. They know exactly what to do, how to do it. I would put in mock targets, that look like the actual thing in China, and train them on that, how to move, how to get there, what to do, how to destroy the targets. And no doubt that's what they're doing. Coming across the border, and when this war breaks out, they'll be activated inside the United States. So this war isn't going to stay, to that region around China, Taiwan, North Korea, and Japan. It's going to be here on our own soil. And like I said, it could go nuclear. Hopefully it doesn't, but it definitely could. So I definitely don't think that it's going to be an isolated war between the United States and China. And we talked about a couple of days ago an EMP attacks in the United States. I don't think the power grid will be attacked with an EMP. I could be wrong. When people was talking about the threat of EMP, that was, a major threat. Now, they've gotten more sophisticated as far as their cyber abilities goes. They can do the same thing from a distance. They can do cyber attacks on the power grid, on the banking system. They can shut down critical infrastructure from thousands of miles away. They don't even have to use the resources of using EMP weapons across the United States. They can do it sitting somewhere, in their bunker, their government-funded bunker, and with their computers, they can shut everything down, close everything down. In fact, the United States did the same thing when Obama was in there to Iran. Iran was getting close to making a nuclear weapon, I think it was, enriching uranium or something like that. And Obama, when he was in office, they did a cyber attack on Iran to slow them down. And it got out, I forgot what the name of that virus was now, but someone let me know in the comments below, but it caused a lot of problems. They're more sophisticated now. So an EMP, they could use one. I'm not saying they won't. Definitely could. Or it could be, a combination of an EMP attack and cyber attacks. But cyber attacks are easier. They're more able to do that more securely without repercussions. Would be more successful, in my opinion, than an EMP would be, because an EMP, to knock out the power grid, has to be several, across the United States where they can. Whereas, for cyber attacks, they can just sit and shut everything down, shut the banking down, shut communications down. They can shut the power grid down. Who knows what's going to happen, but it definitely could happen, and it definitely will happen when we go into war with China, and that World War III that I think is going to break out actually does happen. We get a lot of our stuff from China. We all know this. Everything we look at now is made in China. A lot of the stuff in this room here, I'm sure, was made in China. And the United States and China are in a war with each other. Those imports are going to be cut back, going to be cut off. They're going to be importing most of the medications the United States uses. Antibiotics, pain medications, all medications, I think 90% of the medications are made in China. Just about everything is made in China and shipped back to the United States. So China cuts it off. It'd be like sanctioning the United States. And all that crap you see at Walmart, at Target, at Tractor Supply, at all these big outlets will be dried up very, very quickly when that's not being shipped across. So I suggest everyone stock up on everything you think you might need, especially things that comes from China and is imported. If it's not made here, and you actually need it, try to stock up on that, especially things like antibiotics and medications. But I don't see the United States and NATO winning this war. I see the United States losing this war. I see the United States being lowered, the standard of living here in the United States, down to the living standards of, say, Venezuela, with hyperinflation, with a crumbling economy, a collapsed dollar, a banana republic government. We already have that now, but it's going to get worse and worse and worse, in my opinion. So I think we're going to be, after this war, if it doesn't go nuclear, if it does, it'll be a different story. But if it doesn't go nuclear, we have this war with China, and it doesn't go nuclear, which I think that it probably will, but if it doesn't, the economy's going to be collapsed, infrastructure is going to be collapsed in the United States. A lot of it's going to be, we're going to be lots and lots of poverty, tent cities. The dollar is going to be completely decimated. It's going to be worse. It's going to be worth anything at all. So look to survive after this in what is essentially a collapsed third world country. It's going to be rough. It's going to be bad. So try to stock up as much as possible, guys. Prep like hell, because time is running out. Time is definitely running out. Stockpile food, medications, tools, ammunition, firearms. Do everything you can to prepare for what's coming, because in my opinion, this is what's coming, and it's going to result in the United States, it could be a major nuclear war, which would be horrific, or if it stays conventional, it's going to collapse the United States economically. The United States is going to lose that dominant superpower status. We're going to lose the hegemony. We're going to lose the power around the world. The dollar's going to crash. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a complete decimation of the economy. And we're going to be, like I said, living in what is essentially Venezuela. If you agree, disagree, let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a big thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? What do you see is happening? How do you think it's going to turn out? How's it going to start? How's it going to happen? How's it going to end? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give us some thoughts and post your comments below. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. The Creekmore out here, and I'll see you all in the next video, hopefully.